Wake up, everyone. It's Christmas. No, just kidding. Good morning. You're listening to Drinking Socially, the official Untapped podcast.
Your weekly look into what's happening in the Untapped community and the world of beer. This episode is brought to you by Untapped and the Untapped store. Use the coupon code PODCAST to get 20% off your next purchase. Didn't get a gift for someone? Just tell them to use the word podcast and buy themselves something cool. The Untapped store got your back, because I don't know if it would get to you in time for Christmas by the time you see this. So there you go. A little pro tip. Write a cool little card, coupon code inside. Or just send a text, depending on really how much you want to mail it in.
Honestly, that's the best gift. Text all of your friends and tell them to use the coupon code podcast for 20%
That would be
off.
great.
You buy everyone a present, you spend $0.
Boom. That's right. Information's valuable. Never forget that. Yeah.
And make sure to like this podcast if you value Harrison's Rush poster collection. Subscribe so that you can get updates when we release new stuff. Do either one of those. Do it right now. We'll wait.
Well, John, we did it again.
Accidentally put Christmas lights in our sweaters.
Well, your sweater. No, I mean, that was not an accident.
Yeah, you're right about that. And that's good. That's good.
What I'm talking about is completing another season of Drinking Socially.
That's right. Today is the finale of season 4, the official year of the lager.
We laughed. We cried, maybe. We certainly drank some beer and checked them in.
And how many, which ones? Well, we should all know the answer to that by now, because 2021's Year in Beer came out, and we're going to cover ours together today as well.
I can't wait to once again be the Robin to your Batman when it comes to Year in Beer. Big fan of tights, which I guess they both have. But
true.
Anyway, we'll also give a final update on the Drinking Socially badge. Short answer, you guys crushed it. Longer answer, well, that's for later in the show. And I have it on good authority that John's lined up some delicious surprises for tonight's show to help all of you continuing to level up the badge, which you have actually until January 19th, 2022 to do. So you got a little 2022, to do. Okay, good. So not quite in the rush panic stage of cramming in the beer to the badge yet. But I'm pumped to see what John has in his Santa's bag, if you will, later in the episode.
And speaking of 2022, I hope we don't have to say that much next year. 2021 is almost over. And man, this year flew by. I feel like it was like just a couple episodes ago we were talking about enjoying some Ramslord and dreaming up Ramslord Day 2022 with Newgrass Brewing. That was back in March.
I know. We also learned this year that aliens exist, and it wasn't even the biggest story that week. It was like no one could handle any more over-the-top information, so everybody ignored it.
And honestly, I'm hopeful that Ramslord Day happens this year, too. I think it's a great idea.
Okay.
Anyways, Harrison's right. There's a lot to reminisce about. Beers, jokes, long-winded Harrison stories. It would mean a lot to us if you took a few minutes and told us your favorite moments from this year's season as well. Just comment below if you're on YouTube, or leave a review on the podcast player you're using, or send us a DM on Untapped. That's a great way to do it as well.
Yes. 2022 is going to be a pretty wild year. Right now, we're trying to get Untapped to put the bill for John and I to do an episode in space. Everyone's going to space now. It's like the new Jersey Shore or something. Not yet. We're also trying to plan some more live interactive episodes, and there's a good chance that either space or the live episodes happens. I don't know which one. We'll just have to wait and see.
Probably space. But for tonight, put your feet up, grab your favorite stein, as Harrison and I find ourselves in an all too familiar Lagerville one more time. But something's different. It smells like someone is trying to burn Lagerville down. What do we mean? One of the most historic beers of all time has the answer, and it's hopefully one that most of you can grab without any problem and help push your Drinking Socially badge to the max. Even if drinking might not be everyone's cup of beef jerky tea.
Yeah, right. Beef jerky tea. That sounds delicious. And after we rescue Lagerville from smoky doom, hopefully you'll join me in diving deeper into John's bag. But first, the badge.
Yes, the badge that we're featuring for this final episode of season 4 is the Drinking Socially badge, named Drinking Socially badge season 4. So it's not a huge, as Harrison pointed out, you have until January 19th, 2022 to check in any of the beers that Harry and I have drank and reviewed on season 4. So you can level up that badge through January 19th. Every unique check-in is going to help you level up that badge. And a special note, if you this is a retroactive badge, so if you drank one of the beers we're about to drink, even if you drank it 2 months ago, once we add it to the Drinking Socially badge, you'll get credit for that if you check into another beer. Did we ever tell anyone about this in the early days of the badge?
Honestly, that was a long time ago. I think we mentioned it.
Well, at least it's nice to know now, and we've still got plenty of time as we get ready to close out this badge in the next few weeks.
That's right. And there may be one last chance to capitalize on this if you celebrated your Merry Christmas, Happy New Year a little early. But we'll see. First, let's talk about the beer we're bringing on to close out season 4. It's a doozy. It's a classic one.
It's hard to
I
pronounce.
say that a lot. I'm going to try my best. So this is the, oh no, John set me up well for that. This is the Eich Schenkela Rausch beer.
I'm going to say you think you got it.
Yeah, close enough. Germanic language. So that I speak every day. Anyway, so Marzen, which is important. So
Yeah.
if you know what we're talking about, you know. If you're not, you're like, what is this beer? It's a Rausch beer. It's a Marzen. That's a crazy brewery name. So essentially, this beer is like the OG smoke beer. And I want to run through the stats real quick. Then we'll open it up and we're going to have a good old time with it. But so brewed by Schlenkerla Brewery. So they're in Bamberg, Bavaria, and coming in at, so it's technically a Rausch beer, 5.1% ABV, about 30 IBUs. And from the brewery, it's Bamberg Specialty, a dark bottom fermented smoked beer brewed with an original Schlenkerla smoke malt from the Schlenkerla maltings and tapped according to the old tradition directly from the gravity-fed oakwood cask in the 14th century brewery taverns. There's like, this is a brew pub technically in Bamberg. They're still serving this thing out of old wooden barrels, but today ours comes in a bottle. John's already opened his. It looks like first sips may have happened, or maybe we're just doing first sips and we're hanging
couldn't
out
get
for a
past
minute.
the first smell. Really, this is what are you doing to me, Harrison?
Wait, we're going out with a bang. Where there's smoke, there's fire. Woo! Ah, yes. All right, I'm going to dive into mine. But this is, so like, obviously, Rausch beers are beers that some people hate, other people tolerate. No, there are people that love them. These kind of beer has a special place in my heart, which I'll talk too much about tonight probably. But yeah, the first time you have one, if you're not expecting it, it's like, oh, this tastes like a bunch of smoke.
Yeah, it smells like.
Thing.
Well, beef jerky tea was more accurate than I expected. You can see Harrison.
Yes.
His face looks really excited.
It's
My
cold
face looks really
ham water.
tepid.
This is
cold ham water.
Cold ham water. Better than hot ham water.
Oh man,
soup,
there's going to be
everyone
some
else
American breweries that start releasing Rausch beers called cold ham water next Christmas. Would be perfect. All right, let me dive in.
Ooh. Ah. John's face is doing a lot of moving, a lot of.
This might be my first no on the Drinking Socially podcast. I'm going to give it some time. I'm going to give it another. I want you to explain to me what I'm tasting.
Let it open up a little bit here. Yeah, so this is right. So smoked beers. Long story short, they're smoking their malt. So they're known as in a different way, actually. So I brewed a version of this beer. I was at a Chamonix Creek where we use beechwood smoked malt, and that's where you're getting like an actual smoke flavor from. But the brewery is known as the Historic Smoked Beer Brewery. It's been around since 1405. This has been called the most historic beer in the world. Obviously, it's been around for a while. That helps with that. But they're in again Bamberg in Germany, and so this beer itself, there's kind of three different versions of it. So the Rausch beer is kind of like where it all begins. They do an Erbach, a Marzen, which we have tonight, and then a Weizen, a wheat beer as well. All of them using that smoke malt as part of the grain bill. And it does impart this like really obviously smoky flavor. And if this is too much, and again, it's cool. Beyond that, it's a really great Marzen. I mean, it's like beautiful looking. It's actually really dark.
Super. Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Right, you know, like almost like it's like a porter or brown ale in there almost. You know, for me, sure, the smoke hits you in the face, start to drink it, but there is like this nice kind of malty lager dancing under it, but it's hard to miss the smoke. It really is. And that's not to be, that's to be expected rather. Most people drink this the first time and they're like, yuck, this is gross or weird or whatever. I will say a couple things about this. First of all, this is a great beer to cook with. If you bought it and you're like, I don't know what to do with this, but I don't like it, great. Cook with it.
Your chili's half done.
Right, exactly right. Drop it in your chili. It's got a lot of flavor. However, if you want to get into smoked beers, still stick with Schlenkerla, but they have a Helles lager that has no smoked malt in it. But, and this is really cool, they take the yeast out of this beer and after it's done fermenting, repitch just the yeast into the Helles lager, and the smoke, flavor goes into that yeast as well and transfers into the Helles lager. But it's very, very, very light. It's not leading with smoke. It just kind of a single note in what is otherwise like a very crisp and refreshing Helles lager. So that's a very cool experience to taste it, to think, oh, there must be smoked malt in here, and then to learn no smoked malt in that beer. It came from this beer. This beer is why it smelled like that. So kind of like the junior version of this big guy right here. But I mean, if you're expecting the smoke, I think it's pretty delicious, but it is, it's right. It's cold ham water, I guess, which is not a knock. I love ham. I need water to live. Ooh, it's so smooth. It's a trip though. It is one of those beers, right? I mean, now you got breweries putting like ham in beers. You don't need to just smoke some malt.
This is more. I mean, for me, I have an amazing father-in-law. He loves smoking meats. He's built his own smokers, and every time I go to visit him, we have to go to the garage where there's meat smoking all the time. Yep. And the nose on this beer and the taste of this beer put me in his garage, and it usually comes with delicious meat and smoke. So this is like a shortcut to going to visit my father-in-law. It's kind of growing on me as it warms up and I can kind of take sips and try and take it apart. This isn't going to be my next favorite Christmas beer, but what I think I would be really excited, I would love to cook with this beer. This is like, there's flavor gold in here. You could braise meats in here. You could just add it to your chili and add a can of beans and say you're the best cook in the world. This is really interesting. Yes. I'm grateful that you brought it to the podcast, even though it's not my favorite beer of the year. I'm grateful that you brought it because it's one of those things where like I relish the chance to share this with someone and see what they think of it too. I think it's you're either in love with it from square one or you have to battle with it to figure it out. You're pretty familiar with this beer, aren't you, Harrison? You used to make something like this before?
That's right. Yes, John. Thank you for bringing that up. So again, acquired taste, obviously we went all over that. But when I was at a Chamonix Creek, our head brewmaster, Jeremy Myers, he trained in Germany. We brewed tons of German beers, German-style beers. Amazing place to further my brewing career. And yeah, he had this idea, this goal to always make like a Rausch beer, a Bamberg style smoked Helles is what he wanted to make specifically. And so we figured why not just do the best we can, and went out and actually got to the yeast that Schlenkerla uses. You can actually buy their house yeast, which is kind of crazy, pitch and ferment it. And so we brewed, but the yeast is kind of funny. It gets better at being yeast the more you use it. So we brewed a Helles lager with it. This was not the smoked yeast. This was actually, I guess it must. So yeah, right. It was original yeast. So it came from one of their Marzens, one of their Rausch beers. Brewed a Helles lager with it, brewed our Marzen with it, and then put it into a Bamberg style Helles that went on to win a bunch of Great American Beer Festival medals. And I got to brew it that day, which is pretty cool. So yeah, maybe I'm certainly biased. I know, I get why people are like, this is goofy, not my thing. But for me, it's like, a little memory of brew days. And really, for a while, one of the coolest parts about that beer was we had just bags of Beechwood smoked malt, just special delivery for that beer, just kind of sitting in the cellar and in the grain room. And we would just go in there and just smell the bags, like, till we brewed with them. They just smelled amazing, because it was much more faint. We didn't use as much Beechwood as they did, or as much smoked malt. But yeah, it was pretty cool. The beer is called Croydon is Burning. It's out there. If you're nearby Neshaminy Creek. Cool side story, I think I've mentioned it before, is that the original name for that beer was Meat Juice. So not as cool as ham water, but there's tons of inside stories behind that. It's not as probably perverse as maybe some people are thinking.
Not at all.
It had to do with someone's nickname. That's not helping my case. Anyway, it's not. Just keep your minds out of the gutter. But it was originally called Meat Juice. We decided that wouldn't do well in the public perception of the beer for many reasons. And so we named it Croydon is Burning. And yeah, it's now won, I think, 3 Great American Beer Festival medals in the smoke beer category. So very cool. Went to the source and it did us well.
I remember. I wish it was called Meat Juice, and I wish I could get a Meat Juice T-shirt. I think there's a missed opportunity there. But
I agree.
When I first met you at Untapped so many years ago, Rausch beers and smoked beers came up, and you were like one of the new guys on the floor.
Right.
And I remember you saying, like, Bamberg is like the capital of smoked beer in the world. I'm like, how the heck does he know this? So it's now like 7 years later, however long it's been, that I finally kind of piece all that together.
Right.
And so
from whence it came.
I normally, will sit and dwell on a beer for a little while, but let's, maybe we'll just, you keep enjoying that for a minute. I think we need to also, before we wrap up season 4, we should acknowledge the Drinking Socially Facebook group. We've talked about it a few times. We're in there. There's members of the group that are like kind of become like family, and you see what they're drinking, what they're posting. So we should definitely talk about the year in beer. 2021 was a great part of that.
Absolutely. I know. The 2021 saw the Research Venture group. It was more active than ever. People posting trips they were on, new beers they discovered, milestones hitting Untapped. It was so cool. So love you guys. Keep it going. Keep sharing stuff. And if you're not in there yet, join it. It's open to everybody. A great place to share, what you're doing and the beers you're enjoying, who you're enjoying them with.
Yeah, we set the bar pretty high and early in 2021. It was January 1st. That was the most active day in the group. There were 58 posts in that day, which is kind of exciting and great, but it's actually a lot. If you're in that group, you're probably like, all right, guys, let's calm down.
Right.
So a challenge to get to 60 posts in a day in 2022. But let's do it early. Let's do it on January 1st. Everybody share their favorite New Year's, unless you're doing dry January. In that case, you're probably not listening to this podcast. So
that's right.
60 posts in a day, and then let's kind of calm it down. We can do going into next year, right, Harry?
Yeah, we can do it. And again, it's free to join. And our busiest times in the Facebook group are Saturdays around 8 p.m. So Now you know. But that's pretty cool. So you can jump in there on Saturday night and be around a bunch of other people sharing beers wherever they may be.
Yeah, and I think one of the things about Facebook that I cling to is that group. It's generally pretty supportive. We all like beer. We all like Untapped. Some of the most recent top engaged posts, TJ
Yeah.
shared he unlocked level 100 in the new brew Thursday, which is like, that's an impossible thing
It's
to
a
do.
long journey.
Cheers, TJ. Now, what do you do on Thursdays is what I'd like to know. I saw Karen shared that her daughter brought her back a bottle of Sam Adams Utopias. I think that was an early Christmas present. One of those beers, Harrison. Have you ever had that beer?
Yes, we had it together. I'm pretty sure. And it was gonna be my
ABV.
1,000th,
Okay.
yeah, it was my 1,000th unique. I've told this horrible story on this podcast before. It was all set. It was like $9.98. I was like, all right, cool. I'll go down to the Untapped bar in the office. I'll grab a pint or whatever. I'll check that in, and then I'll come upstairs and have Utopias. That'll be 1,000. And then someone brought the bottle near our desk, and I followed them into the room. We were gonna the bottle share room. We were all gonna enjoy it in. And I just got lost in the moment, and I drank it, and I was like, yeah, and took the picture, checked it in, and was waiting for it to pop up, and like nothing showed up. And I was like, oh, I never went down and got the other. I got it back. So it's like 999th check-in, unique check-in on Untapped. So yeah, good times, almost.
There's a post in the Facebook group recently about someone that wanted to check a whale in for their I think it was their 5,000th beer. You're not the only person that remembers their 999th check on accident. One of the things I want to bring up here really quick is trending recently. Andrew stated kind of a hot take, especially with Harrison in the room. He'd rather be drinking Celebrator than Celebration. What's your view on that hot take, Harrison? And maybe do me a favor and explain what Celebrator is, just in case not everyone has imbibed in the Angry Goat.
The Angry Goat. So Anger's Celebrator, their Doppelbock, amazing beer, one of the best lagers in the world. We're trying to get it for tonight, but unfortunately sold out around town. It seems like John did some impromptu research right at the source, and it seemed like Celebrator's been a little tricky to get a hold of. So bummed about that. But yeah, I'm happy I don't live in a world where I have to choose. I can drink Celebration and Celebrator. It's tough for me to say this because it is the year of the lager, but I'm going to go with Celebration by a hair just because, I mean, I'm already on my second 12-pack of the season. I'm going to try and do 2 more. I love that beer. Everyone knows that. Celebrator is amazing, but Celebration is, I don't know, it's just got a little bit of an edge. What about you, John? What would you pick?
Well, I think given the choice and the year that it is, I would have felt inclined to pick the Celebrator. That's a great beer. We drank a double bock. We talked about how good they were. But, if you're in the same sort of situation that I am, where you're hunting for a beer because you have to record a podcast and you really want to find it, but you can't find it, maybe you'll be fortunate enough to find a replacement. So
we're going to the bag.
I picked up a little something from Michigan called Dragon's Milk. We've talked about this beer so many times on the podcast. It's almost Christmas.
It is.
Let's crack this open and enjoy a little bit of Dragon's Milk instead.
Dragon's Milk. Yeah. So this is here. I'll pour mine. You go ahead and tell the people what they want to know about Dragon's Milk.
So for those of you stat checkers, Dragon's Milk comes from New Holland Brewing. It ranks 11% ABV, and on Untapped overall, it holds a 4.06 rating after over 270,000 check-ins and ratings. So this beer has a bit of a cult following, even though it's become more and more easy to get. So New Holland will tell us that throughout the ages, Dragon's Milk has been used as a term to describe potent ales and elixirs worthy of celebration, a reward at the end of a journey. Give me some Dragon's Milk. We are the proud stewards, New Holland says, of that ancient tradition today, handcrafting each batch of Dragon's Milk bourbon barrel-aged stout in Holland, Michigan. The best liquid in the house is now yours. Roasted malt will give you notes of coffee and chocolate married with sweet undertones of vanilla and oak from a 3-month stay in bourbon barrels. And they'll also do this in a bunch of different variants. You've seen like chocolate mint and orange and I think caramel. There's been a whole bunch of different flavors. Harrison and I went with the OG Dragon's Milk. The first time I ever had this, it had like a foil wrap on the top. It's kind of cool to see the branding. And I'm excited to drink it, Harrison. So please buy me some time to pour this. As you tell me, is it good? Is it still as good as I remember?
It is. It's very much like I remember it. I mean, I've had it years ago, really, and it was one of those beers that, I don't know, 10 years ago or so, if not, around 10 years ago or so, like one of those beers everyone freaked out about. I remember learning about it on like a beer advocate forum, I think. People kept talking about how silky smooth it was. Never had a stout that smooth that wasn't on nitro. All this kind of hype around it. So I'm enjoying it in my beer advocate glass to commemorate that as the place where I first learned about Dragon's Milk. Nice kind of little punch of bourbon in there, dark chocolates, all the stuff you want, like it's big. You get the nice heat of the booze in this too, which is welcoming on a cold winter's night. Also love, I didn't know this, but the Dragon's Milk term describe a potent ale elixir worthy of celebration, kind of the reward at the end of a journey. Here we are at the end of season 4, enjoying our Dragon's Milk. Maybe every beer thought it's a Dragon's Milk, I guess, technically. But sometimes things work out like that. It's like a magical Disney movie. And here we are doing it, living it.
Enjoying, for me, this one, this beer, there was a time before I worked at Untapped. I worked at North Carolina grocery store in their beer program, and the guy who was like had way up in charge of the beer and beverage decision for that grocery store. His one request was that anytime we launched a new store, you had to have Dragon's Milk available. It was his favorite beer. Reasonably drink one of these and your whole day's turned around. It's 11%, but it's sneaky. And so that was my introduction. I was like, man, I don't know if we'll be able to get this. Let me talk to every distributor in the States and see if we're, and it's gotten much easier now. And I understood. I fell in love with this beer the first time we kind of had our exchange, him and I. He was like, well, take a growler of Dragon's Milk home with you and tell me how much you love it. And the next day, it's a good thing I was younger then. Don't ever this isn't advice. This is a command. Please don't ever take a growler of Dragon's Milk home with you to see if you like it. That's a horrible idea, but I would probably do it again, given the chance.
That'll knock you out. And Chip Pollock knows a little bit about that. So he dropped something in the Facebook group you mentioned having to do with this beer, doing some experimenting himself at home, which we love and encourage. This is back in March of this year. What was Chip getting into with Dragon's Milk, John?
So Chip did one of my favorite things. I'll quote him in the Facebook group. I finally picked up a French press and I started playing around with some stouts thanks to one of your old podcasts. Just made one with Dragon's Milk, donuts, coffee, and coconut. Freaking delicious. Probably not the best idea on a work night. This is going to get expensive. Just upping the levels. But I mean, so he took this beer and basically made his own variant with a French press by adding donuts, coffee, and coconut.
I love it.
Good night. That would be expensive. That's probably more of a Friday thing.
Definitely a Friday early afternoon thing. So you have plenty of time to recover. I'm just laughing about like the helpline for that French press company. They're getting calls from people listening to this podcast going, how do I clean donuts out of my French press? Why
is there donuts in it for coffee?
Right, that's after the coffee, sir. Or what about the coconut and the toffee and stuff? Why is that in your French press? You don't know how to use this thing. No, I do. John Harris told me.
I get to if you're affluent enough, or just stop drinking coffee and use one for beer. Keep those separate, or you do you. But it's hard to clean the toffee out afterwards.
Yeah, kind of just straight to the garbage. Ooh, but this is a lot of vanilla, a lot of oak in here. Even though it's only 3 months, but that's okay. You don't need bourbon's one of those flavors. If you ever had a bourbon, you're like, I know this.
You still remember it
from a mile away, right? Like you don't need a ton of time in a bourbon barrel, especially like a fresh, wet one. to get the bourbon note out of this.
Oh,
So it's
we got
happening.
fresh, wet ones. We got meat juice. This is a podcast to remember. That was one of the things I wasn't going to ask you, but since you kind of brought it up, Harrison, you said 3 months, not that long. Do you know, maybe not, like, is that close to average for when we start seeing like bourbon barrel stouts everywhere? Is there an average? Is it like is 3 months like a light amount of time? Do you usually do it longer? And maybe just in your experience, how
Right.
often would you guys sit it in a barrel for?
Really, like I think what a lot of breweries do now is they'll about a year, and I say about a year because from a production side, what you're going to do essentially what we did at Yosemite Creek is we'd brew Leon, our Russian Imperial Stout. Let's say we brew it every November, we bottle it every December. And then half that batch, or however much we decide, we wouldn't bottle then. We would put in barrels then. And then next December, we would bottle that as we're brewing fresh Leon. So it just kind of, so then you could release like the bourbon barrel aged version and the non-bourbon barrel aged version, but they were a year separated in terms of when they were actually brewed. So, and a lot of breweries do that. It's kind of like, now today's the day we're brewing our crazy stout, half's going into barrels, half's going into bottles of being sold fresh. So, and again, you kind of see that a lot. I know KBS is very upfront. It sits for 12 months in bourbon barrels. But CBS, when they used to make that was always touch and go. That was part of the barrel master's job. Or I'm talking about Founders, of course, was to go and taste those beers. Because I remember when I went to Founders, and I asked them that question: how long does CBS sit in those barrels? And I was told that it depends. Like, we're kind of looking for a flavor profile. Sometimes it's 8 months, sometimes it's 7, sometimes it's 10. We're pulling little samples out of those barrels every week and seeing how they're tasting. And then if they're good to go, they're good to go. And you just set up the bottling schedule and make it happen. So if you have the ability to do that and are really going for a flavor profile, that's another way to approach this. And at that point, the time is less of a factor, and it's more about, okay, this is ready to go now, and then you bottle it up. We do that a little bit too. So again, usually a year. So, but 3 months is fine. I mean, again, it's what's your goal? What do you want it to taste like? And if you're on top of it and tasting those barrels, time shouldn't really matter.
So I think that's probably the most poetic, but also correct answer, right? Like 3 months is good, a year is good, but ultimately it's up to, like, there's a talented and skilled person behind that's making a decision. Like, this is good, this is ready, or we should wait a little bit longer.
Yeah, exactly right. Yep. Yeah, I agree. I mean, yeah, yep. Sure. I mean, it's like any skilled job. It's up to the people there making the decisions, and that's really what we say we love certain breweries, but we're kind of saying by saying that is the people that make the beer and are in charge of watching it and being a steward of it. Big fans of those folks, and hoping they are drinking their beer empowers them to say, awesome, we nailed it when we pulled that dragon's milk out. Let's do it again the same way next time. But this is delicious, John. Oh my gosh, what a way to end the episode. Excited to wrap this bad mamma jamma up. What a year.
And let's hold on a little. We haven't even covered the year in beer yet.
Okay, I guess we can sip on this a little longer. Or, I mean, you're right. So we've already had 2 beers. Haven't even covered year in beer. My goodness. Okay.
So I think it's probably a good time to take a look at our own years and beers and see who won.
I don't think it's a contest this year, John.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's never a contest. But honestly, I probably couldn't compete with most of our listeners either. But maybe, like, just between me and you, we can compare our numbers a little bit.
Okay. But if we're going to do that, I say we dive back into your bag and let's get another beer. Let's keep going.
I got a special one for this. the one that I told you not to look at all.
Okay. All right.
So
this is the one.
look to your left or right, feel for the wax sealed beer, and then pull that onto the screen and into your view and let everyone know what we're going to be enjoying.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
What have you done? What have you done to me? We may be recording this on a Wednesday, but it just became a Black Tuesday up in here. People listening to this another day of the week will not be laughing, but that's okay. So, yes, and you have one too. It's not just me. You got something in your bag. What's a little bit different than mine?
That's true. Harrison and I are going to be enjoying some of the Black Tuesday variants from the brewery's Reserve Club. And if you're watching on YouTube, if you're not, this might be the time to check out because you're going to get to watch Harrison and I both struggle with opening a wax sealed beer.
I'm going to go. I'm going to try. I've got my blowtorch out while I'm doing this. So I'll talk about the beer while I'm just trying to open it as opposed to, actually, I'm just going in. John's already got his blade. John may be talking about his before I talk about mine.
It's kind of a race at this point.
Where's my Leatherman? Here we go. Watch Harrison cut his finger off on live television.
Yeah. Do podcasts have medical coverage?
We'll find out. I'm not going to read and do this at the same time.
Nah, that's smart. Maybe if we edit this, maybe we can turn it into a speed reel until the blood starts flying.
You're right. The speed reel will be running, grabbing your thumb, going white as a sheet, blood splattering everywhere. Running towards the back of the room.
What are all the paper towels for?
Near the door. Oh man, this is thick wax.
Yeah, this works out a lot differently than I anticipated. When I would have just opened it before we started recording.
I almost did that, and I was like, "Nah, that's cheating. We've never done that before. Why would I do it now?" So the brewery is not lacking on their wax game. That's for sure. Here, I know how to do this. I'm a professional.
No, if you saved this, you could re-wax 6 beers with it.
Wow. But yeah, so as John mentioned, these are variants, and this is a gift to us. So this is kind of crazy. John knows a little bit more about it than I do, but from what I recall, so the Reserve Society Club, it's a members-only club that allows access to purchase some of the more exclusive beers the brewery makes. So we should all know Black Tuesday. We have a bunch of variants of, as John said, that beer. These were shared with us back in 2022 when the world was, obviously extremely different, by Jacob Pincus. So Jacob, thank you. Sorry it took so long to get to these beers. We had all kinds of plans, and then again the world said, "No, you don't. Yeah. No, you don't." So we had to wait, but figured the finale of this season would be a great time to spend 40 minutes sawing the top of these things off. So we're doing that now.
And I'll give you an update. Here's about where I'm at right now. I chose to start with the same pocket knife that got me through my military career. Is now my bottle opener. It's old, but for me,
dog hair.
There's probably, I don't know, 100 ways you could do this. Harrison mentioned a torch, which isn't entirely wrong. The most important thing that I'm always concerned about, and I picked this up from Mike, who was on the second episode we ever recorded of this podcast. He always wanted to make sure that you didn't have any wax underneath the cap over here, because then when you go to open it, you'd push that wax and it could get into your beer. That was his biggest fear, and it's now my biggest fear. So now that I've got the wax off that one side, I'm just going to pop it open with a regular bottle opener, and I'm going to hope that it doesn't explode all over my Christmas sweater.
That's right. I'm hopefully not too carbonated, but and yet, little pop. I heard it.
Yeah, actually, we did pretty good. We got the label off, clean and clear. No wax fell in. Now now we gotta taste this monster.
Yeah, it is a monster. It is no joke, this beer.
So while Harrison's finishing up, I'll give you a little bit of a rundown on the beer that I'm going to try and finish before I fall asleep on the podcast. So this is the Black Tuesday Spicy Island version from the brewery. It comes in at 19.2% as their Black Tuesday
Woo!
beers do. So that's the highest ABV beer we've had on the podcast in its
Yeah.
history. This one ranks 4.33. It's
Wow.
only been checked in 1,800 times because, like Harrison said, you have to be a member of the brewery's special reserve club to get the option to buy this beer. It doesn't guarantee you the beer, it just guarantees you like a place in line. And
Yeah.
so this one, the description is an imperial stout aged in bourbon barrels with pineapple and habanero chili peppers. This was inspired by our brewers' love for kicking back and sipping classic tiki drinks treated with habanero and pineapple. This imperial stout earns you a one-way ticket to Spicy Island. And well,
All right.
I wish I wish I had the ability to share this with everyone, but
I know.
I
Pretty
mean,
cool.
we're coming right off of Dragon's Milk, which is a
Huge beer.
consistent banger of a bourbon barrel stout. Let's see how Spicy Island does. Oh, son of a waffle. Son of a waffle. Waffles. Thanks, Harrison. Wow, dude. There's a lot of wax on that beer, but it's conveyed in that sip that every little detail was painstakingly measured when they were making this beer, putting it in the bottle, and then keeping it in the bottle for, I assume, I don't know what the date is on this, but it's got to be at least 2 or 3 years in here.
Yeah. By now.
Smooth and not overpowered, right? I get a little bit of heat that leaves, like after the sip, I'm left with like a little residual heat, and then the pineapple's there, like identifiably pineapple up
Cool.
front, which is I
Wow.
expected to get exploded with heat, and
Right.
this is good. Nothing needed, no French press needed for this beer.
Amazing. All right. I got mine open. So let's talk about mine. I'll give you a breakdown. So I got Black Tuesday Samoa. So from the brewery again, 90.2%, as John mentioned. It 1,459 total check-ins, about 1,271 unique. 9 this month. Interesting. It carries a 4.38 rating on Untapped, and simply says Black Tuesday Samoa is brewed to resemble our favorite chocolatey coconut Girl Scout cookie. This imperial stout was born from the winning treatment at our 2018 Black Tuesday treatment tournament. Thanks, GJNPS. Cheers to 10 years of Tuesdays. And a little bit more on the beer itself. So it's imperial stout aged in bourbon barrels with toasted coconut, cacao nibs, vanilla, maple syrup, and graham cracker added.
Ooh.
So vanilla and graham cracker. We spoke before about how you could use vanilla to kind of mimic the graham cracker flavor in beers. Doubling down. So I'm looking for vanilla. Let's see what happens. I've got it in my cool hop culture glass.
Oh, I wish you could share that with me. You can. This is okay.
Ooh. Oh, wow. Black Tuesday is one of the best stouts out there, which is no news to anybody, but it's been a little bit since I've had it. Ooh, it's very warm. So you get like chocolatey, gooey. There is that little coconut note, and I'm hunting around for more vanilla, but this is like the epitome of a beer you should like sit with the whole night and just this. If you're in a rush, not the time for this beer. This is
Harry ready to go out to the pool with his dad. Yeah,
that's right. Not a shower beer. No one. That's the wax is there to slow you down. If you don't have time to open the wax, this is not the night for this beer. But wow, this is yeah. I mean, this is more your expertise. Like the crazy stouts that have so much stuff in them. So I feel a bit out of my element, but I can tell when something's delicious and tastes like dessert. That's my element, dessert.
Factual.
Anything cake or cake adjacent. But man, this is let me go in for one more. I'm hunting for that vanilla. That's really all I want, and this will be complete. Whew. Yeah. Wow. Golly. Yeah, this is dangerous. And I tell you what, like 19.2, but like
Yeah.
no heat. I'm not getting any heat on mine. Yours has heat, spicy peppers in it, so that might be tough.
Heat on purpose. Yeah.
Okay, but man, like, oh boy, this would be a beer where it'd be like, oh, do we drink it already? That's fun. Oh, I'm asleep. I'm on the ground.
The amount of like perceived alcohol in this beer compared to Dragon's Milk is about the same, only it's nearly double.
It's nearly
So this is like a beer equivalent of like a 20-year single malt Scotch. This is,
for sure.
as you point out to Harrison, this should be something that like you could. Was it 350 ml bottle? This should last you an entire Christmas Story, Die Hard, National Lampoons.
Exactly.
Like this is a whole Christmas movie in one beer.
Easily. Oh yeah. And again, we talked about it a lot. I wish sometimes the podcasts were 5 hours long, but nobody else wants that. But if they were, we drink beers like this and just kind of, because it's going to take in 20 minutes, this will be a completely different beer.
True.
It's so wild. And so often, I think about that sometimes. Not enough to keep me up at night, but man, did I drink that beer too quick? If I'd waited, maybe there was more of a story here that I'll never get to know because I was rushing through it. So not going to do that right now. Pouring small sips, decanting. What are we doing? Yeah, you tell me.
Instead, well, you still take your time because we've got some stats to cover.
Oh, that's right.
We haven't even. This is a legitimate first here. I don't think Harrison knew about the surprise beer, but also we haven't even talked about our years in beer. Years and beers, beer years. We haven't even talked about our beer years.
Our yibs.
Yes, show me your yib.
We know each other well enough. That's
fine. Yeah, I've seen it 100 times before. I remember it last year. It's probably not much different.
Yeah.
But I'll start off and say that I let myself down, and by proxy, all of you, because I think I promised I was going to hit a certain achievement. And if you remember it, then you can call me out. If you don't, then shame on you. But I was going to hit a certain achievement, and I fell short. I checked in 196 beers in 2021. And that's less than I wanted to. How about you, Harrison?
I actually did 287 this year.
Whoa.
I think I'm happy with. Yeah.
Okay. And game's over. Moving on to that.
It's going better. Tonight, Robin becomes Batman, I guess, or something. I'm too early for that. Maybe. We'll see.
1 point to Harrison in this thing that isn't a competition.
Legally can't be. But let's keep going and keep score. Okay, so all right, fine. I win there. What was your average rating, though? I was curious about this because we both love beer. We get to drink a lot of really good beer. It's funny. If you're on Untapped, probably a general statement I can say is you just like good beer. So we're self-selecting for good beer. So we're probably rating higher because we get and go and drink good beer. So anyway, but I was kind of maybe surprised where mine was. But where did you end up with? Well, I did 4.37 was my average rating. So everyone's great in Harrison's world.
I drank. I know that I drank a Bud Light this year. Not enough to earn the All-America badge. We're still working on it, I promise. But
we know.
I usually won't check those in. I'll check into the beers that I really want to remember. And so my average rating was 4.35. 200ths of a point behind you son of a waffle. Well, I guess technically that means that the beers you drank, not only did you drink more of me, but you perceived them all to be better than the beers that I drank.
You just had a great year.
I got some slack for giving Yingling a higher rating earlier in the year when I was camping. And whoever it was, I can't remember your name, but you're right. It may not be worthy of the rating that I gave it. But a lot of times when I rate a beer, it's like I'm rating the whole atmosphere and what I'm feeling at the moment and how the beer is contributing to it. And that's how I use Untapped. So
that's right. You cannot rate a beer in a vacuum. It's impossible unless you're in the vacuum. And then I would be trying to find a way out, finding air.
Next year when we're in space. Next year when we're in space, we'll do it.
I know a lot about vacuums from all the research I did with space. I spent a lot of time on the Hoover website until I realized it was not the right kind of vacuum. All right, so this is something fun we've done every year. Well, as far as I can remember, we've been doing Year in Beer since 2018 now. And one of the things we always call out is the first check-in of the year. Do you remember yours? I mean, you have it in front of you now, but tell me about it, John. First check-in, what was it?
I wouldn't have remembered it if it wasn't for this. It was a beer called Coffee Stout from New Glarus Brewing. And I remember having the beer. The picture helped me remember where I was. But what I remember about that most is it came from a really good friend of mine named Ryan, who was from the New Glarus area of the world. He was the first person to kind of pirate me a spotted cow, and then he was able to bring me one of their coffee stouts as well. And so thanks, Ryan. That first beer of 2021. What was yours, Harrison?
Yes. So mine was named after the legendary Rowdy Roddy Piper.
Beautiful.
Exactly right. Of wrestling fame, but also from the amazing cult classic They Live. If you haven't seen that movie, everybody should, especially now, or whatever that means.
Christmas movie. Yeah.
That's right. Perfect Christmas movie. But the beer itself was called Rambunctious Roderick Piper from Divine Barrel. Great logo too, had his cool kind of kilt on it. And I took a photo with sunglasses. Sunglasses are a very important part of They Live, as I hope everybody knows. That was a fun, I couldn't remember it's my first check-in of the year, but it was. So that was cool to look back on. Ooh. And let's talk a little bit about change, John. So you said last year you had a heck of a year for check-ins.
I fell just shy. Last year, I had 297 check-ins. This year, 196. So I dropped by 101, which is great if you're writing a Dalmatians movie, but
or trying to lose weight.
Arguably not great if you're trying to level up all your untappedness. So this year was a much more selective year for me. It was weird for all of us, and for me as well. I feel like I left my house 3 times, so. Beer didn't carry the same sort of social bonding and fun that it did before. That's what I'm going to blame it on. I dropped 101 check-ins this year. How many did you drop, Harrison?
I gained about 100 and something. I had a 171 last year, 287 this year. And that's probably because last year I did what everybody did. And we talked a little bit about it on the podcast last year, where we saw brands like Sam Adams and Sierra Nevada, kind of comfort brands, if you will, really grow in the uncertainty of the world, going to something you could rely on. And I did that. I drank tons of Sierra Nevada last year. I don't know why, if I was constantly doing it or not, just because of the state of the world, but I drank a lot of it. So in terms of, I try not to check in every Sierra Nevada Pale Ale I have. Every once in a while, I'll do it. So this year, though, it was all about trying new things, and we were really lucky to host a lot of cool virtual festivals that got us cool beers and got beer boxes and all that stuff. So I just had a lot more beer I'd never had before this year, just by happenstance, which is cool. So I happened to grow a little bit, which is, I need to catch up to you. Anyway, you're way ahead the lifetime. This is a good year for me. I'm chipping away, catching John.
Yeah, it's good. So that makes me feel better. This was like my Michael Jordan's going to go play for the White Sox for a little bit.
Right.
What about this? Isn't okay. So you're winning handedly. You've got me in beer check-in growth. You've got me in ratings. You've got me in check-ins. You've got me 3-0. So you're actually Michael Jordan in the finals right now. One of them that, I think that was actually food poisoning. Well, that's what the new rumor is. It wasn't the flu. It was Utah trying to hold him down, but you can't hold down the greatest. That's right. Anyways, yes. This isn't a Michael Jordan podcast, but it could be. So what about your top ranked beer over last year? And we'll say you get a point if it's a lager.
All right. Well, then I'm happy to take another point. So my top beer from 2021 was Old North Premium Lager.
That's great.
Old North Beer Company. And so Old North, if you don't know, it's kind of a brand under the Highwire Brewing Company. It's just like a brand of theirs. It's a single premium lager, comes in 12 packs or pounders. And I had it, and it was amazing. It was like everything you want out of just like an approachable, drinkable, delicious lager beer for like $13 a 12 pack. So that's tough to do for a craft lager. And yeah, I just remember getting gobsmacked when I enjoyed it and being like, this is exactly what I wanted this beer to be. This is amazing. Which is fun because sometimes you're disappointed. Sometimes you're like, holy cow, this is better than I thought. Those are all fine. When something really nails it right in the head, that's a different kind of exciting, a bullseye, if you will. So hats off to Old North and those guys crushing it. My number one beer 2021. What about you, John? Another point to you. If you can drop one in the lager bucket, what do we got here?
I knew what year it was the whole year. And my top beer for 2021 was from New Anthem Brewing. It was called Eats Guitars.
Yes.
It's still probably one of my top 5 of beers that I want to drink again. It was a double dry hopped lager. And I ended up drinking so much of that I actually went down to the brewery and bought a keg, and then bought a kegerator on the back porch so that I could have it like on draft. And then there was one time where I showed up, I think, to change kegs, and the brewer at New Anthem was like, hold on, I've got something for you. And he presented me with one of like a framed label art that they used for that beer. And that's when I knew I had a problem. But, I was like, thank you so much. This is amazing. I love and adore New Anthem. I think they're incredibly talented. But it was also something where my wife was like, you think they give that to everyone? Or maybe
what does this mean? What's the context?
Never mind.
It's okay. Great. We got a new thing to hang on the wall. Y'all don't buy stuff for the wall. I brought something home for the wall.
Yeah, I'm doing stuff for the family now. Now let me go cool this keg down.
That's great.
That should be like 5 points. If your top ranked beer wasn't a lager, you should be doing some soul searching right now.
That's right. Some yoga on the mat. Just drink the lager closest next to you, and you'll be fine. You'll make it.
I'm proud word.
Oh man, wow! And there's a couple. What was your top 4? Quickly, let's zip through that. The next top 4. What'd you enjoy? What'd you enjoy here, John?
Less lagery, we'll just say. So 2 of them were from Smooge, and there's maybe an argument that that's not really beer, but I don't care. If you've ever had Smooge's strawberry banana or a pina colada, you understand. I only drank sips of them. Then it was Vitamin C's Sour Pipe Project. They did a blueberry pancake beer that I thought was absolutely fab. I'd give it a 5 stars. And one of the beers I talked about on the podcast from Holmes Brewing, Deep Depths, which was a fruited sour. And that was also, Holmes Brewing is amazing. And also related, like Holmes Brewing and Smooge are kind of cousins. So good job, Michigan.
Good job, Michigan.
Yeah.
Good
stuff. What about you, Harrison? What are you leaving dangling there? If they're all lagers, I'll give you an extra point.
Not all, but so Neshaminy Creek's John, which is their pale ale. I was able to get my hand on a 6-pack of that again. Missed that beer. Used to brew it once a week for a long time. But can't get it anymore. So that was cool. I went over the top with that on the rating side. Drummond's Porter that we had on the show this year. Just love that porter. I dig it. The Woo-Ha got y'all in check.
Was that from Heist?
From Heist. And that was an event you and I did with Lowe's and Heist, enjoying some killer beers from Charlotte with Lowe's Foods. So that was that beer was awesome. That whole event was great. And then funny enough, I have a non-beer, my top 5 as well, Birds of Paradise from Graft Cider. So we got to hang out with the Graft guys on the Go Hard Fest, did a virtual happy hour with them as well. So they're doing some amazing stuff. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Most innovative cidery out there. I mean, they're just, if you want to kind of have your mind blown, they have a barrel-aged series. They do all kinds of things that you don't think of when you hear cider. It changed my entire outlook on what ciders could be, and That was cool. So happy to see it again in the top 5 because it definitely was one of the most impactful things I had this year. Stuff Graf's cooking up.
Definitely hitting the Johnny Appleseed badge next season.
Right. Got it. We will. Don't worry. And probably with Kraft. We'll see. A lot of great cideries out there. We had a few on that Go Hard Festival that was like, whoa, we are sleeping on what could be the most exciting part of the craft, malternative movement,
Yes.
I think was the term, which I absolutely love.
I think it works. There was some cideries, there was some meaderies,
Seltzeries.
Yeah. I guess technically 2 seltzers made it into my top 5. And is that something I would brag about at like a craft brewery? I might not lead with that, but I would back it up. I think that there's talent in those cans and bottles, and I don't care what you call it or what your history is. If it's delicious, it's delicious.
You get to watch John's reaction. It's on YouTube somewhere. The video of that whole show.
Oh gosh.
Going, oh, it was great. It was great to see. Great to see John getting blown away. But they were good. I mean, they were wild. It was right. It was a trip. It was one of those moments, and I'll remember too having those smooches because it was just unlike anything I'd ever had before. So,
well said.
Yep, cool. All right, let's jump into beer styles. So we're looking at how many different styles enjoyed last year. What say you, John? Where'd you land?
For me, I tried 72 different styles out of a possible 225.
Wow. Well, you beat me here. I'm only at 70. Close, though.
Ooh, wow, that's 70. Close.
Neck and neck. What was your okay? What about top style for you? What was it? I have a guess, but
you're probably right. It was a fruited sour.
Good stuff. Mine was an American IPA because I'm just the most average.
You are Untapped.
I am Untapped, which was already. It's also the top beer style across all of Untapped was IPA, followed by stout, and then sour ales. So we're all both kind of up there with the beer world, which is good since we have a podcast about beer.
True.
We're kind of
if it was both amber, if we both hit amber ale, we'd probably be in a rough place.
Alt beers again. They're coming back.
So right now, for those of you playing along at home, I have 6 points and Harrison has 8.
Okay, good.
Because we did 5 points for the lager. I'm making all this up as we go, but I'm still down by 2. And we're coming into how many breweries did you try last year? I'll start this off as my Untapped year and beer loads up. Right now, I'm at 119 different breweries.
I am at 160. Dang it. Robin's back in my tights.
Well, you're still ahead. We got one final point to earn, I think. So we'll see. But with the venues, I drank from 119, which is only 3 more breweries than you. Wow. Dude, we were close this year.
I know. Makes sense. We do drink a lot of the same beers because of this podcast.
On average, Untapped tells us each Untapped user checked in beers made from 21 different breweries. So, I mean, yeah, we do the podcast for them, and it is kind of our job to drink beer. But we crushed in that regard, especially for not traveling. I think I left North Carolina twice this year. So, but speaking of that, locations. You are a family man, you're a father, you're a husband. You never should leave your house. You should be going to Home Depot, the school, and then back to home. So I think I've got you beat in locations. I checked into 23 different venues in 2021.
Well. How the turntables have turned. I checked into 41 venues. 41.
That's like double me.
A lot of drinking in the Home Depot parking lots. Not as much in the school drop-off lane, but not
good.
None.
That's good. Yeah.
Oh man, but yeah. So I don't know how that happened. A lot of virtual. Well, I mean, part of it was a lot of virtual locations. So a lot of cool virtual events this year. Got to enjoy. and check into. Ton of them. So happy about that. Those are the best trips, the ones you don't even need to leave your chair. That sounds sad.
It does, but also comfortable, right? It sounds comfy too. It sounds sad, like you should like go do travel, backpack across Rome or something, but also drink a lot of good 116 different brewers from home, mostly home,
Pretty
41
cool,
different places, never mind.
right?
Um, I think that puts you definitively, that's 9 points for you against my 6, and I don't think I can earn. What other things come with a year in beer?
Well, I think it's mostly just actually there is one good one. Well, first of all, we should pause for a moment on the friends section, and let's just make sure we both got this correct. So in 2021, your top drinking buddy was who, John?
It was you, Harrison. It
Right.
was you.
It was you as well for me. Did it again this year.
Well, that's pretty good. Okay, so we conquered that from last year. I think it was my wife, and that's not anything you should be embarrassed of, unless my wife is your drinking partner too. Then we need to talk. But I'm happy that I finally turned it around, and my best drinking friend was you, Harrison.
I know, that's likewise. Yep, good. All is right with the world again. And then probably the last one, which may be the most significant, although tough to track for sometimes, is badges. So let's finish with this. Let's just go with total number of badges earned this past year. John, what do you got?
This year, I'm down from last year quite a bit, but this year I was 264.
Woo!
Which is an even number, and that might be worth extra points to some people.
These rules are changing a lot. But regardless, you beat me by 20. I was 244 this year, also down a lot from last year, which is interesting. Again, okay, fine. Still a fair amount of badges. But last year, I think I had like 400 and something. I don't know what I was doing.
Wow.
How I was doing it. I think you did too. We were really crushing it last year on the badge game. This year, maybe it was more about leveling up badges than new ones. There's nothing, no data to support that, but
once you unlock a lot of badges, then it just turns into a level grind. And as we know, the badge part of Year in Beer is worth 100 points. So I'm sorry to say that you lost again.
Did I? I'm glad you're keeping score. That seems... You're like the bank at Monopoly. How do you have all the 500s?
Well,
am I supposed to get?
You can have a 10. You can have a 10. That's what everyone gets, a 10.
That's great. Interesting. A lot of taxes.
I love seeing that, and kind of it makes like my year in Untapped. It always leads me to get more excited about next year, and it kind of reminds me like I don't just check these beers in to for nothing, right? I check into them so that I can remember what my first one was. I can remember that Ryan shared that beer with me from Wisconsin, and it's nice at the end of the year to get kind of reminded in this beautiful chart of all the beers I've drank. I wish it was a way I could look at like all my top rated lagers really easily.
Well, if you want more information, John, you can always become an insider, which you are and I am, and that's fine. But if you guys are out there and really enjoying Year in Beer, becoming an Untapped Insider, you get access to this kind of data all the time. You can dive in, you can export data, you can do all kinds of stuff with it, learn more about what you're drinking, what you really like, all that stuff, which is pretty cool. So still time to join the Insider program. And like we spoke about before on the podcast, we're doing more than ever with that next year. John and I have some ideas. Don't want to talk about them yet because if they don't happen, we'd just be here with sad memories. But maybe they will in terms of what that Insider program could features that could be added to it, and cool things that could be involved. So keep listening, keep what you're doing, and we'll update you here as we learn more about Untapped Insiders and data and cool things. But for now, go ahead and share your Year in Beer, if you haven't yet, on social media. Tag John and I, tag Untapped. I mean, I love to see this stuff. It's really cool to find out again, how people have been enjoying beer over the past year. And yeah, if you were one of our drinking buddies, let us know. Love that.
Yes. Yes.
Right? Please do. So, yeah, but this is great to look back. Really need to work on my badges next year. I don't know if I have a goal. It's tough to set one, but maybe. I mean, I was so close to 300. I'm like 13 check-ins away. Do I say 2022 300 or bust? Maybe I do. Maybe I am. It's a soft bet, a soft goal. I don't know.
As a guy that's failed many gym routines and diets, I'm going to set my goal to 250 check-ins next year.
There you go.
I should just make it like 50. And then as soon as I hit 50, every one after I'll feel really good about. Like if your workout routine is like go brush your teeth, you're crushing your workout routine. That's a strategy that we should employ more often.
Overachiever. You're right, it is. It's all about setting that goal low enough where you can basically do it in your sleep. And then you're nothing but an overachiever.
Yeah, so, feel like a champion.
A lot of good life lessons today. Speaking of life lessons, I'm pretty cozy. I'm very warm right now. It's mostly this cardigan, but also probably a good amount of these beers that we're enjoying. But let's come here and let's talk about what we came here to do. One of the things, a lot on the docket tonight. We're doing great. The beers are working, but I know what everyone's probably waiting to hear a little bit about, because we really haven't talked about it a lot this year, is the Drinking Socially badge and where it is. I mean, where are we? What are we doing? But this is, of course, reserved exclusively for the finest of Untapped users, our Drinking Socialites, we, you, whatever, collective we. Yeah, let's do that.
But before we do that, you think maybe we could drink one more beer for this segment? I've got the perfect one. It's only available once a year.
Okay. Are you going back in your bag?
Yeah. Well, let's check and see what old Sandy Claus left us.
Sandy Claus?
No, it's not. It's not Sandy Claus.
Yeah, John, I dropped that off for you.
Did you say that Santa's made up?
I'm not saying that, but I brought that beer for you tonight. Oh,
this beer is, if we have a tradition on drinking socially, it's this beer this time of year. Anchors Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's. And this looks slightly different than last year's, doesn't it, Harrison?
As it should. So I'll give us a quick breakdown of this while you pour yours and jump into first tips. But yeah, so we're enjoying Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, our special ale from Anchor Brewing Company. It's a winter warmer, 7% again this year. And we keep saying this year, because this Christmas ale changes every single season. The recipe changes a little bit. Sometimes ABV goes up, goes down, and the logo as well. It's always of a tree. And so this year it's of the Western Joshua tree, which is supposed to represent the natural beauty of California's high desert. And in terms of tasting notes, rich bittersweet chocolate, hints of raspberry, and light mulling spices such as cinnamon, clove, nutmeg, and cardamom. So a dark, silky smooth brew to be enjoyed, holiday season. But yeah, it's a cool tradition. We ended last year, almost ended last year. It was like the second to last episode with this beer. Loved it. It's back. First sips, John. What do you got? What's happening in this year's edition after all these other huge, ridiculous beers we've had? What are you able to taste?
It's hard to taste anything. It would probably have tasted different if we drank this an hour ago, but it's still good. The thing that I want to say most about this beer is that it tastes really light, and I'm not sure if that's because I just drank some giant stouts. But if once I get past the fact that it doesn't bring as much body and heft as the last two beers we drank, I get that mulling spice. I think you said, and that's like it tastes like. please never listen to my beer reviews, but it tastes like this would be good if you served it warmed up,
Ooh,
like a
like a
hot Finnish wine or something like.
like a what do they call that? Like a Yule. Oh, what's it called? Wassail. Sure.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
something
yeah.
like that. I hear
Um,
you. Yeah, yeah. This is great. I mean, the same thing. Lots of mulling spices, cinnamon and clovey kind of in there.
but
This is
not like
great.
it doesn't like sometimes when I taste a Christmas beer or even
Right,
just a winter warmer, I'll think like Christmas fruitcake. And this
right,
doesn't, I mean, it doesn't necessarily put me in that place where I'm drinking like old Italian Christmas cookies. It
right.
it doesn't bring that fruited holiday spice. There's I don't for at least what I'm tasting right now, bear in mind this is my fourth beer tonight. Um, it tastes light and the spices kind of shine
Hmm.
like that's what I'm getting the most of, and it's really nice right now.
Yeah, very drinkable. Again, we just had like a 20% beer, but extremely drinkable. It's delicious. It's kind of, I mean, again, I loved it last year. I think it's the perfect beer for this time of year. Again, it's got those holiday spices to it. Like it's what I kind of imagined a winter warmer tasting like. And then 7%, it actually hides that pretty well. Obviously, it's not crazy boozy, but if I had to guess, again, I've got 20% stout and coating my palate right now, but I would guess it's being like 5%, but it's 7. So warm me up. Tasty stuff. I should note this is the 47th year they've done this, and this year, some of the proceeds of the sales are going to One Tree Planted, which is a non-profit dedicated to global reforestation, planting millions of trees across 43 countries. Pretty cool. So obviously,
That's
trees a
great.
big part of this beer. Trees are pretty important. We need them to live and breathe. So hats off to Anchor for really, again, this is one of those cool beers. You can drink it and feel good about it and warm and fuzzy all over for many reasons, beer aside. But as I mentioned, we had last year's Merry Christmas, Happy New Year as like one of the last beers of the season. Excited it's back on this year's Drinking Socially Badge. So if you haven't figured it out, like all the beers you're drinking right now, they're on the badge. So Dragon's Milk, grab it, badge, level up. These crazy Black Tuesday beers, good luck.
You're probably out of luck on those,
Beer.
but
That's good. I know, but and then of course, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. This is all going to land on the badge. So let's talk about the badge, John. 2021, drinking socially. What do we know? What's happening?
big
Let's
stuff.
kick us off. Let's do
Big
it.
stuff, Friar Elf. So this year's Drinking Socially badge was earned and unlocked by almost 159,500 and some odd people, which means
Woo.
probably by Christmas, or sorry, by New Year's, with the
Correct.
addition of these four beers, we'll see it unlocked by 160,000
Sure.
of you fine individuals. And it was shared on social media with over a million people. So that's pretty cool. Those of you that earned the badge shared it with your friends, and they were able to discover, hopefully, our podcast, but also discover Untapped
Yeah.
and maybe chase their own craft beer journey. So we break down this badge, Harrison. We get a little bit more detail on this badge than we do when we normally talk about like the hopped up badge or something like that. So
Yes.
let's start with something kind of easy in your data crunching, super brain nerd podcast data collecting head that you've got there covered up in an elf hat.
Mm-hmm.
Where where are people unlocking this badge the most? Like where in the world? Is it Buffalo mainly?
Is not Buffalo, John, unfortunately. Good guess. So this wasn't too surprising. Look at the top 10 cities where this badge unlocked the most. There are also three of the biggest collection of Untapped users in the world: New York City, Chicago, and Philadelphia. So top three right there. New York, number one, but Philly and Chicago really close to each other. I thought it was pretty cool. We had Früh's Kolsch on this year in Cologne, Germany. Jumped in to the top five.
That's
It's
cool.
so cool. Just drinking a single beer.
The home of
Probably.
the Kolsch. That's great.
Yeah, so Kolsch is pretty powerful stuff. But then good to see Charlotte, North Carolina on there as well. As in Nashville jumped in there right at the top 10, which is cool. Again, one of those kind of exciting beer markets that's not gigantic, but still pretty, got some great breweries. So that was nice to see them on here this year.
Yeah, I know we were excited to get Bearded Iris
Yeah, exactly.
from Nashville. So hopefully that helped out some of our friends in Nashville get this badge for the first time. What about, okay, so cities? New York's a big city, Philly's a big city. Those things kind of make sense. But what about like locations and bars? Was there like a specific venue that unlocked this? Like last year, I know we talked a lot about chicken and beer at the
Chicken and
Atlanta
beer.
airport. Great place. If you're ever in the Atlanta airport, go to Chicken and Beer. They got a great draft selection. It's better than I think most airports. But what about this year? Did we see any cool locations that were unlocking this badge the most?
We did. We saw a ton. Places you'd expect, like well-known breweries like Oscar Blues Brevard Tap Room made the list, and Sweetwater, Burial, New Belgium, Trogs, almost all the high wires. But number one, amazingly, was out of Jackson, Wyoming, Roadhouse Pub and Eatery.
That's all. I remember when we drank their beer. Yeah.
We had two beers. We each had a different beer that episode,
Yep.
which probably helped. So they've got a little bit of an edge having two beers that are, and I think both of them are available. I think all the time there, or most of the time that we enjoyed. So hats off to Roadhouse. Good stuff. Those beers were awesome. That was a really fun episode. To again, not heard of them before. Smaller brewery, and to be like, what? This is great.
Yeah, Jackson. You're saying Jackson, Wyoming was the top venue for all the drinking socially badges.
That is it, folks. So it wasn't in New York or Philly or anywhere else. It was just sleepy little Jackson, Wyoming, and Roadhouse Pub and Eatery jumping in to the number one spot. Number two, however, which is pretty cool, was a place called Fru Amdom. So I'm imagining that's one of Fru's locations, again in Cologne. So, man, that little Kolsch did a serious number this year on the social badge.
That's good intel for next year when we plan this again. There's two questions I want to ask you about locations. One, Russia. Please tell me that someone in Russia made it here on the list. And two would be Wilmington, North Carolina, where we've drank a lot of our beer while recording and preparing for this podcast. Did you happen to see any locations from Wilmington, North Carolina, or from Russia that made that top 10?
Yes. So for a while, Share House out in Moscow.
Yeah, I remember them. Yeah.
The number one venue. We had the Adroit Theory beer, and they happened to it was really hard to find, and they happened to have it. It was a part of a festival, I think, or an event, and a lot of people checked it in. So that was like the number one location for a big chunk of the year was Share House out in Moscow, which is pretty cool. And yes, thanks to us enjoying some High Wire beer this year, High Wire's Wilmington location made it on the list as well. Which is pretty cool to see. Little old Wilmington there is one of the top venues to unlock this badge this year. So hometown representing, as the kids say, or something.
Yeah, they probably say that. I don't know. I'm not on TikTok very much, but okay. So we learned that the biggest cities in the world still have a lot of play. New York, Chicago, Philly get a lot of unlocks, but like Cologne, Germany, Charlotte, Nashville, there's other cities that are getting a lot of unlocks for the badge. Really excited to hear the diversity in locations earning the badge. Jackson, Wyoming, come on. And so now the big kind of the reveal, the one that at least I'm most excited about, what is the beer? Which beer did we put on the badge this year that got the most unlocks?
It's pretty cool. So we'll do I want to build it up a little bit. So I actually have the top 10, John.
Ooh, okay.
And so coming in at number 10 was the legendary Crush It Like Quint There's some faint drums. Narragansett Lager. Grab a Gansett.
With the Jaws episode. That was a lot of fun. I remember that.
Good times. After that, Mad Elf. So we had that when we did our, what did we call it? Large plate? No, strong plate. Super plate. Wasn't super. Couldn't say super. A live show we did.
We weren't allowed to say super.
Something.
We weren't allowed to say Super Bowl. I think I just said it. So yeah,
great plate. It was
the Great Plate. Yeah, good job.
We'll probably bring that back next year. So anyway, that was number 9. Celebration, not surprising, jumping in here at the top 10, even though we did that only a couple episodes ago, but everyone's drinking that beer right now.
Yep.
Colossal Claude after that, hanging out with
that was so much fun.
That was so cool. Those guys are so talented, amazing animators, amazing beer makers, all that stuff. Followed up after that is going to be Fruz Kolsch. So the Kolsch, strong and top 10. Anchor is Steam Beer.
Nice.
California that was an early episode. That was the first episode, I believe, maybe, of the season. And it's ending the season. Fun bookend thing happening there. Summer Bliss, one that you really love. We both did. But that was one of the surprising beers where we weren't quite sure what to think of it. Opened it up and quickly became a hit in the summer from New Belgium. Then Thick Haze from Oscar Blues is number 3. And the top 2, the king of the jungle, well, the ancient Jurassic jungle, King Sue, jumping in at number 2 from Toppling Goliath. And number 1 was Hazy IPA from Sweetwater Brewing Company.
Wow.
Which is pretty cool. Not terribly surprising, right? That like a Hazy IPA is at the top.
Fair.
Yeah, that's a tough market to stand out in, the hazy IPAs. So hats off to Sweetwater for doing that, making a pretty serious impact on the hazy game this year. One of the things I kind of remember
this point,
about that beer, right, really liking about it is that it was like 6 or 6.2% or something. If you can give me a nice hazy IPA, it's not 7.5, it's not 8, it's not even 7 or 6.5. You can have a few of them sitting down at 6. That was something that stood out to me, going, oh, all right, this is good. It checks all the hazy IPA boxes, and it's not going to make me fall over. So good job, guys. Good job, listeners, drinking socialites, enjoying a bunch of hazies out there. There's a bunch of other, it's a pretty cool beer list. It means IPAs, lagers, Kolsch's, Mad Elf is in there.
True. I mean, it's really cool, the diversity of the beers that help people unlock the badge. Obviously, we drank a lot of great beers this season.
I did, yeah.
And Atlanta twice, 2 years in a row. They had chicken and beer in the airport, and now Sweetwater out of Atlanta, top beer. And I don't even, that's not, anyways, bravo, Atlanta. We need to pay more attention to them next year.
This is amazing.
And
cool.
So I guess we go to the best beer of the week. Do you want to drink another beer? Or?
I don't know. We're not going to drink anymore. And I don't even think I could. Best beer of the week, forget that. Let's just pick a best beer of the podcast, John, because we had a lot today. This is my weekly allotment of beer anyway, sitting here in front of me. I'll pick one. I'll start. This is tough. And looking at, I'm going to say it was, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Again, I mentioned it earlier, when a beer hits it right on the head like Old North Premium Lager did, that's cool. That's a rare thing to be right where you thought it would be. That beer tastes exactly like I thought it would. So that's going to be my favorite. Even though this Black Tuesday Samoa is like a whole, I feel like I don't know enough about the world to understand how good this beer is. So I need to go search for my soul and walk.
Drive the leftovers over here.
Right. Got it. John knows exactly what to do with it. But so they were all amazing. They were all amazing. It was very cool to have a classic, crazy German lager, one of the OG big, imperial stouts, this insanely rare beer from the brewery, and then a standby that's a little different every year. This is a perfect finish to the season. But I'm going with Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. What about you, John? Podcast beer today. What was your favorite? Well,
we know it won't be the first one. Although if we were cooking, totally different answer. It would be the first one. But now I've got 3 hard decisions to make. And I should say Black Tuesday's Spicy Island, right? Because that beer had probably more man hours in it than than a lot of beers I've had. But I think I'm gonna make a pick that I probably wouldn't normally. I'm gonna say Dragon's Milk because I'm imagining like Christmas Eve with my in-laws and family from out of town. And I think it's going to be Dragon's Milk. It's going to be the rest of that 4-pack that gets me through some hectic holidays where my shirt is running out of batteries and I'm sweating. So Dragon's Milk. And it was delicious. The original Dragon's Milk. It's probably been forever since you've had one because there's a bunch of variants. So Dragon's Milk, my best beer of the podcast. Ooh. But I'm an embarrassment of riches on the episode tonight. So
we really overdid it. So, but that's okay. It's fun. It's a celebration. As I said earlier, every beer tonight was a Dragon's Milk in its own way. If I'm using that term correctly,
I think matter. You are now. Yep. Yeah.
All right. Well, we want to thank you all for listening to us this past year. It's been amazing to drink and share our love of beer and Untapped with each and every one of you. We appreciate all the outreach, the DMs, the Facebook group interaction, jumping in the comments whenever there are posts about the podcast. It means a lot. We look at them all, read them all, respond to as many as possible. So I hope you keep it coming next season. We're excited to share a lot in the new year with you guys.
And make sure, if you haven't yet and you're interested, hit the follow button. Make sure you're following Untapped on Twitter, Instagram, or following or subscribe to this podcast so that you can be one of the first people to know when we do launch season 5, sometime in the middle of January. If you need more beer content in the meantime, make sure you check out Untapped's YouTube channel because it is full of it.
That's right. Until then, as they say, yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, but today is a gift. That's why they call it the present. Hopefully your friends this year come in a bottle or a can. If they don't, get better friends. Just kidding. Ask for a gift card. Use the Coupon Go podcast. That's not what this is spoke for. Anyway.
Until next year.
Cheers! Oh my gosh, I need to
pass me the Advil. Right?
Yeah. Need a whole steak, something to slow this all down.